Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Siri just went off right in front of me as I went on the air here. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another very special episode of this little podcast that I have here. It's not an original name for the podcast by any stretch, but you guys can see I do have a new face with me. He is a very dear friend of mine. We go way back, but he was... You know, when somebody requested that I do this, this was, the first name that popped to mind, in all honesty. Because huge Star Wars fan, huge geek like myself, huge theater geek like myself. Welcome to the channel, Andrew Stebbins, everybody.
Oh, you flatter me. Thank you so much, Zachary.
How are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
The year's almost over.
Facts.
We're surviving, so I'm happy to have you on. Before we get into this, dig a little bit deeper, why don't you I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the viewers who may not know you.
Very good. I am Andrew. It's a pleasure to be on this little adventure with Zack. Me and him, as he said, we go way back since, our family have been friends since our parents were in high school, so
yeah.
It gives you a clue about that. We've been doing theater since I was 11 or 12, so it's been basically 10 years almost.
Yeah, man.
Almost
I think over 10 years.
Over a decade of theater.
Man.
Start off at the local community theater, obviously, as you do, and it went up from there. And Zack's been a dear friend of mine, talented individual, puts so much of his heart into everything he does, and I'm happy to have him as a friend. I do theater sometimes, as Zack says. I love Star Wars. It's been a part of my life since I was a child. It is the thing that I love most in life, probably the second or first or second, close tie.
Heck yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about it today. And hopefully I'm going to say some stuff that we get other people angry about. So let's have some fun. Let's make some hot.
Dude, that is...
It's so going to be good.
Thank you for the flattering words, by the way. You didn't have to say that. But, okay, yeah. So that's a perfect segue into what we're talking about, folks. Somebody has requested that I rank every single Star Wars feature film that's come out. And we're not, just to be clear, we're not going to be including The Mandalorian on this countdown because that is a TV show.
It is a series.
This is just the films, basically. And you made an excellent point. I feel like aside from WWE, this is the fan base that people are most upset in, I think. And I feel like we're going to say a lot of things that are really going to be disagreeable, but that's the magic of it, my friend. It's all subjective.
It's from a certain point of view, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say.
Yes, yeah, and I'm very excited for that series to come out on Disney+.
Oh yeah, dude, it's going to be so awesome.
Yeah, announcement to my viewers. For those of you wondering where my thoughts are on Disney's Investor Day announcements, I will be going live on Wednesday to discuss all of that, so stay tuned. So real quick, also to my viewers, thank you all for stopping by. I hope you guys enjoy your stay. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that button down below as hard as you possibly can because you guys will be the first ones to know anytime a new video hits the channel. And, not to toot my horn about it, it's free. And also feel free to leave a thumbs up by the end if you enjoy this little argument that I'm sure Stebbins and I are going to get into. I don't know about you, man. All due respect, I don't know if this was one of my easier lists to make, but this was one that I don't know, the bottom and the top I feel like were really easy for me, and then the middle I was just how do I piece those together,
I will say, going back and watching some of these movies, I didn't watch all of them. I didn't have time like I thought I did, but I watched the ones that mattered, I think, and I surprised myself to the degree to which I liked and disliked certain parts of the movies, which we will list today. And I actually thought about, there was a movie, because when you said the 11, I don't know. I'm gonna kind of pseudo start us off with the honorary mention to the Clone Wars animated movie that came out
Oh,
in
okay.
like the 2010s that everyone who is a Star Wars fan and grew up watching the Clone Wars knows about. Um,
Very
it's
much.
okay. It's fine. It's not fantastic. It's not terrible. It's 3 episodes of the Clone Wars tucked together, and it's fine. And we don't have to worry about it. But that's my honorable mention. So
There you
this,
go. Yeah, no, that's definitely a solid pick for an honorable mention. But yeah, I mean, the Clone Wars is definitely a very fun show. I'm
oh yeah,
definitely very happy to see what Disney is doing with some of the characters from the Clone Wars. Certain characters that
yeah.
are appearing in the Mandalorian, they're getting their own series. Just kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit there, but yeah. So those of you who have been here before, those of you who've been here for one of these countdowns, I'm pretty sure you know how any sort of countdown works. But yeah, so since Stebbins is the guest, he will of course go first, and then we'll just kind of have a little argument about each choice, I'm sure.
Oh, it's gonna be some hot takes. Hot takes.
hot
Deliberately divisive December.
hot take. Nice alliteration there, my friend. But yeah, all right. Without any further ado, this is the top 11 live action Star Wars Skywalker Saga anthology films, whatever you want to call them. Number 11.
Number 11 is going to be a no surprise, I don't think, to a lot of people. I put number 11 is The Rise of Skywalker.
Wow. Okay.
And
All
I
right.
put this at the bottom of the list for a myriad of reasons. And I want to sum up my thoughts about The Rise of Skywalker first. I like it because it is Star Wars and there's a lot of amazing Star Wars in it. But there is a problem with that movie. And the problem is, it is many cool Star Wars scenes in a very incohesive movie.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Like,
very true.
there's so much cool stuff in it, like the Sith temple secrecy, the fact that the Emperor is back, and like everything with the holocron map thing. It's all super cool. The final fight, it's very awesome. But there was no story.
It
there
was
was no cohesive. There was no why. Why is this happening? And
yeah.
there's a lot of. I'll pass the time over to Zach. Let's see what his thoughts are.
You know, you're gonna really hate me. I have Rise of Skywalker a little bit higher, so I think what I'm gonna do is
Ooh, ooh.
leave
All
my
right.
candid thoughts on them for a little bit later. But I will say I definitely agree with. I really enjoyed the sequel trilogy. I am not gonna lie.
I did too.
It's it's really fun, but even Daisy Ridley herself has gone on record saying that The Rise of Skywalker was just frantic to film because just didn't feel like there was any plan. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that was certainly what this film felt like to me. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just bringing back Palpatine. You know, I'm not
And
gonna.
he's back.
Yeah, I'm not gonna come on here and bash Ryan Johnson for the choices he made in Last Jedi either, but it just felt like J.J. Abrams came back and he was like, "Oh, I gotta fix what Ryan Johnson did here. He killed Snoke. Oh, there's Palpatine. He was behind everything the whole time." And it's like you just kind of like defeated the whole purpose of
Hmm.
the first trilogy. Like Anakin was the chosen one, and he threw Palpatine off a freaking bridge,
Hmm.
and he was just underground the whole time. Like,
And
I,
that is the reason why it is the lowest on my list. Not because it is it's a beautifully shot movie. There's some amazing cinematography in there. The
so
acting is
gorgeous.
the acting is good, like across the board. Like it's more at the general characterization is more script than acting wise, but the actors did good with what they had. It is what it represents in the, I would say, mismanagement of the sequel overall story. The sequel trilogy started off very solidly, and I will argue that it still had solid a foundation into The Last Jedi. But then they made a big error and just threw everything away with Cohesion. And that is why it is at the bottom of my list, is because, like you said, it kind of nullifies the entire first 6 movies. The buildup of Anakin Skywalker as the chosen one, the tragedy of his fall to the dark side, and his eventual redemption by his son doesn't matter because Palpatine was still alive and he built 18 billion Star Destroyers that look the same as the old ones, and they all are mini Death Stars.
And he's like a zombie that's on life
He's
support.
a zombie.
You
and
know,
he's a clone, and he's also all the Sith, and there was all these guys underground. It was just like, wait, hold on. No one thought about that.
let me catch up for a second here. But yeah, man. I'm sure I'll delve into some of my candid thoughts on Rise of Skywalker and why I have it higher. But you want to go from the sequels to the prequels real quick?
Dude, let's do it. I'm so excited.
Because my number 11 is Attack of the Clones.
That's fair.
And the reason why a Star Wars movie to me should never be boring. And Attack of the Clones, the whole way through, I just was not into it ever. I was like, okay, yeah, Anakin and Padme are bonding. This is great and all for the story, but I'm just not into it. I couldn't believe it on the rewatch. I was like, really? You're making me fall asleep here, Hayden. Like, yep. I love you, man. I'm happy you're coming back, but it's, to me, that's pretty cut and dry. That's the reason why I have Attack of the Clones at the bottom.
That's fair. I will, and I'm going to go ahead and just spoil my number 10 because it is
number 10.
It is Attack of the Clones.
There it is.
And we can look at that.
throw in the edit there. Like, throw number 10.
Number 10.
There it is. Attack of the Clones. All right, let's.
No, but you pull up a lot of valid points. It is not fast-paced. It is slow in a lot. The entire middle of the movie is slow. It starts off pretty good, where you're like, let's chase the bounty hunter on speeders throughout Coruscant. That's pretty awesome. And it ends pretty awesome in the fighting arena. But the middle part is not that awesome because there's like 2 moments that are awesome in the middle. When Jango Fett fights Obi-Wan in space, and when Anakin kills an entire village. Those are the 2 most important things in the middle. You could skip the rest of it. Yeah. I mean, obviously the romance is important to the overall story, but in terms of the singular movie, it's very slow.
But the thing is, like, the reason why the original trilogy was so great is just because it had a little bit of every genre put into this big space opera thing. And episode 2 was just like, oh no, we're just going to do soap opera romance. Yeah, Attack of the Clones was boring.
You're right, it's not.
If people like it, that's fine, but it's
important it's important. We can't deny it's an important movie in this because it was made.
Oh, definitely.
Because it gave us clone troopers, and those were built upon to be probably one of the best aspects of Star Wars right now, the clone troopers.
And I think Natalie Portman's a fine choice for Padme. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to say that she's terrible in the movie. She's fine, but I just wasn't all that invested in the character just because. Also, another thing is, like, I know where this story's going. Right. Like, this is about the ascension of Darth Vader, so it's very predictable also. Like, but
the music in that movie though is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
it carries on the tradition. There is, going back to the Rise of Skywalker, that's probably the exception. Because it just reuses so much music, but the Attack of the Clones probably is one of the most beautiful pieces of music in all of Star Wars, which is that love ballad between Anakin and Padme is so beautifully composed and is so iconic to the entire trilogy. I think that music alone saves that entire dynamic.
John Williams completely saves the prequels with his music for sure. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But going from the worst prequel to the second worst prequel on my list.
Number 10, Zack Goller.
Number 10 is The Phantom Menace.
Ooh.
Because of freaking Jar Jar Binks and the introduction of Jar Jar Binks for one. He is You probably heard it all about him already.
Oh yeah,
He
who
is
hasn't
he is
complained?
the absolute worst. Um, the worst creation George Lucas could have ever come up with. Like I can't stand him. But to be fair, it's not boring like Attack of the Clones is. You could still rewatch Phantom Menace and some of the really cool action sequences that are sprinkled throughout the film.
Right.
I love the Darth Maul duel at the end. That
Oh,
is an
beautiful.
amazing action sequence for sure. Was not expecting Qui Gon Jinn to die so quickly. Liam Neeson, I would have thought they would have used him a little bit more in the trilogy, but there he goes. Another one bites the dust. But I mean, it's fine. The little kid playing Anakin's a kid, but again,
Right.
annoying. But
This was the one I told you that surprised me when I rewatched it. I hadn't watched it in so long. But I realized that I didn't hate Jar Jar as much as everyone else does. He's not. I agree that he is the weakest and probably the worst part of that entire movie, but he's not that bad. Like I was tolerating him, and it was just fine. Like it was just like there's been worse additions to Star Wars than Jar Jar Binks, but he is unequivocally the weakest and most distracting, I would say, part of that movie. Like there's just like comedy's always been in Star Wars, but that bold face of a comedic character was not necessary.
he just wasn't funny. Like
There was like one point where I was like, ha. But like, overall, it was very child. I mean, he's designed to appeal to children, so
he was designed to be endearing, and he was
yeah.
designed to be like wittingly endearing. That's what Yoda was, and you
Yoda's
know,
better.
and Yoda's infinitely better.
Oh yeah.
Like he's legendary. Jar Jar Binks is just laughing stock, basically.
It's not. It's not good, but it's.
Yeah.
It was fine. I thought it was fine, and even him, like in the battle at the end of the movie, was fine. And I was like, well, there you go. And they did more stuff with him in the Clone Wars, and he wasn't that bad. I honestly think he was better in the Clone Wars than he like later when they
Yeah.
used him in the animation. He was better in the animation than he was in the movie.
That's an interesting point. It does feel like Jar Jar would be a heck of a lot better in an animated film than he would in live action.
And he was, I think, he was like they use that clumsy comedic thing a lot. And I think people, if he was released in that medium first, people probably would have actually liked to see him in live action, but that's not
Mm.
what happened. So when they brought him back into animation, everyone hated it.
Oh, I
Like,
agree.
no, I hate this.
Yeah. It's I don't know, man. Yeah, the prequels, I mean, we're going to talk about another one in a little bit here, but
Right.
they're very very hated by the Star Wars fan base for
We'll
various
talk
reasons.
about the prequels shortly,
Oh yeah.
because we have to. I still have to list the Phantom Menace on my list, and
Oh
you're
yes,
yes.
absolutely. Speaking of your list, what's your number 9?
Number 9 goes to The Last Jedi.
Oh no. Oh no.
Now this is not to say
Oh
I think The
no.
Last Jedi is bad. I
Oh
actually like The
no.
Last Jedi a lot. This is like at this point, like past 10, this is only a 9 because there is so much better above it. Like not to take away The Last Jedi. There's just so much other stuff that I consider to be better above it, like God tier Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the reason I put The Last Jedi at number 9 is that reason actually, basically just because I felt that I personally enjoyed so much more overall. And I think part of the reason that it's on there is because of the I've considered to be mistakes with some of the characters in that movie, largely unnecessary, because they could have done the moral choice and dilemma in a way better way with established characters. Of the Admiral Holdo, the Rose Tico Finn Canto Bite thing, and DJ was weird
Ay, ay, ay.
and not
Yeah.
super necessary. and it ended good. And no, it ended good. The ending is actually not my issue. It's mainly that stuff that drags it down, because the rest of it is great. Like the Rey and Luke dynamic and all that stuff is super cool, and I love that part. The ending is great. That connection between Rey and Kylo Ren, how we learn about they have the thing where they can like touch and transport across space, is super cool. It's something we've never seen before in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those bits of what I consider to be unnecessary additions, almost tokenism, to the
Yeah.
rest of it is like not great. And the fact that they kill off Captain Phasma, which she became basically the Boba Fett of the sequel trilogy, was like also a weird call. Like, you saw how it worked for Boba Fett. Did you think it was going to happen? No,
Yeah,
it didn't work.
I
People
don't
got
know
so
if
much more excited about Boba Fett later.
I feel like Boba Fett was way more threatening than Captain Phasma ever was. I felt like she was always like the blithering idiot. That was,
She only got like what 3 scenes in the first movie.
Yeah, she and General Hux are the blithering idiots of the
Right.
First Order, but
Which is funny because in like the books and comics, Captain Phasma is like one of the coolest characters ever. Like,
yeah, Captain
like
Phasma is really cool. Yeah, man, Last Jedi, I personally I have it a little bit higher once again, but
that's okay. I respect
it's
your opinion.
you know, but I will say this on Last Jedi for now. The whole ending sequence, I love it. It feels like a
Yes.
big giant Western standoff, especially with Luke and Kylo. You can definitely see where Rian Johnson like took a lot of that inspiration. I really liked how he directed the film too.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
but the way the film ended, like altogether, I have a bit of a problem with it, honestly,
Ooh.
because it felt to me like the ending of The Last Jedi. It felt like the ending of the whole story almost, with all of them on the ship. They've conquered the First Order and all that. Luke has had his piece, and it's like I was sitting in the theater. Like, I saw it 3 times, by the way.
Right.
I really, really loved it. But I was sitting in the theater the first time, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's great! Yay! Okay. Oh, there's another one." Yeah, that's how I felt. You know, it really to me felt like the ending of the trilogy, and I think that's part of the problem with Rise of Skywalker is it was just like, oh,
That's what followed it? Like, really? That was what you came up with? Like, come
yeah,
on.
yeah, man, it's. Oh man, but are you ready to be upset?
I'm very ready to be upset with you.
Oh man, should I say it? Should I not?
You should totally say it.
Oh, number 9 is Rogue One. Number
Really?
9 is Rogue One, and I'll tell you why.
Interesting.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Your most likable, your most fleshed out character in a Star Wars film should not be a droid. Your most likable character should not be a droid at all. And K2SO, I really like him. The dude's awesome. But Jyn Erso, like, she was boring. Cassian Andor, aside from I'm very much looking forward to his Disney Plus series as well. I think that'll definitely redeem him in this. Aside from one outburst in Rogue One, boring. Didn't care for him. The blind guy, Donnie Yen, he was really cool. I really liked the whole idea behind him. But he was teamed up with this big Samoan, like, big gun muscle dude. Like, they were together and they never explained to me why they were together.
Right.
Like, there was no backstory to it. And the Darth Vader stuff was really cool. I think that definitely keeps this from the bottom, like the absolute bottom. But
top 10 endings in all of Star Wars is Rogue One hallway sequence. Like,
yes.
oh
Oh,
gosh.
dude, that was so awesome. I think Gareth Edwards directed it really well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give Rogue One credit where it's due. It's the first Star Wars movie that actually felt like actual war.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it finally lived up to that part of the title. Because, in a sense, this was a war epic. But that also works to the movie's detriment because you don't get as fleshed out of characters aside from K2SO, who everybody loved. But, again, imagine if C-3PO was the most fleshed out character in the original trilogy. No disrespect to 3PO, but, like, how ridiculous does that sound?
You make a lot of good points, and I think that's one of the points I agree with most about the criticisms about Rogue One. Um, they did need a bit more fleshing out,
Hmm.
and if they did that, it would have been more meaningful. The ending would have been way more meaningful.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Part of the reason I don't think they did is because they, well, they also reshot so much of that movie. Like if you watch the trailer and then watch the movie, you're like, wait a minute, that's like a completely different ending. So I
Hmm.
think if maybe if we had seen what the original ending would have been like, maybe it would have been different, and maybe we would have thought something else. They would have characterized some more people in that last, I don't know, 30 minutes.
Hmm.
But I mean, as cool as it is to have characters' backstories fleshed out in comics and books and stuff, there does need to be a baseline, and I think it was a little bit lacking in that.
Totally.
Very cool character concepts and great setups for characters, but they did need more fleshing out.
You know what I think was missing back when Rogue One and to that point Solo, you know what was missing was Disney Plus. Because I
It's
feel
true.
like a lot of these characters, what makes the Mandalorian so great is that they actually give these characters time to develop. You
Hmm.
know, Rogue One and Solo just had their own movies, like,
Right.
only 2 hours to develop all of these people, and the
Yep.
Mandalorian gets all this time, and
Hmm.
lo and behold, the Mandalorian is way better than both of those. So, yeah,
You had so many characters though. It would have been hard. It would have been hard to, in a Mandalorian style like series, characterize all of them. You'd have to have, I think, two series going on, and then do like a DC thing and bring them all together, which would
yep,
be awesome as well. And that's what they're doing now, actually, Disney
yep,
Plus with all their new stories.
hmm,
Um, so I agree with you. Like the characterization works, but also really doesn't work at to the movies
yeah,
help. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
for sure, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about your
Yeah,
opinions on Rogue One once we get to it on yours, because I'm
you're gonna be
assuming it's higher.
surprised. You're gonna be really surprised where Rogue One is on mine.
Oh man, I'm excited to see where it is. But here we are at number 8.
Number 8 is The Phantom Menace.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. All
Um,
right, why number 8?
and I put it above number 8 because of I just truthfully feel that Jar Jar is not as a detriment to the movie as the Canto Bite scenes were to The Last Jedi. Like that character is those characterization dips, like and the weird dynamic between Finn and Rose. It was just strange. Now, don't get me wrong, Jar Jar is still strange and super
That's an
weird,
understatement.
but the beginning bit and it's like I just put myself into the shoes, like, we're going back to like 1999 when that movie came out. I was born that year. And we had heard that the Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice and whatnot, and so like this is the first time like we're seeing Jedi to what we figure at this point is their prime, right? Like this is uh, the Jedi stuff, right? And it's
Hmm.
exciting. You're seeing this whole new droid faction, like with these robots with guns, and you're fighting with lightsabers, and you're seeing all these new species. Like the Gungans as a species are cool. Like it's this cool like underwater tribal city, and they got the cool balls, and you see the rise of Anakin Skywalker. Pod racing is one of the coolest things to come out of Star Wars. The entire pod racing sequence is fantastic. Like, even though I knew he would win, because of course he would, it's the first movie in a trilogy. You're like, I was tense. Like, I was like, oh shoot, get him. Like, and
Yes.
that is a testament to how good that sequence is. To like where you're like, even though you know the expectation, you're still tense. The duel with Darth Maul is one of the greatest duels in all of Star Wars history, up there with the duel between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader in the Episode 4. And
Yeah.
what they do with Darth Maul as a consequence of that is just so awesome. It's also like part of me puts it here is just because of what came out of Phantom Menace, like what was born because of that movie. It's the reason why Attack of the Clones is number 10, is because even though the rest of that movie is super boring, so much awesome stuff came out of it. It like saves it from being number 11.
Yeah.
But the piloting sequence, this
Super
desperation was
cool.
just, like, so awesome. And it was a lot of really cool sequences in that movie that I feel save it, and honestly elevate it past the Jar Jar nonsense.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
past once they get off Tatooine, like, we never see Jar Jar again. Like, once you leave Tatooine, like, the whole rest of the movie, you have like an hour or 45 minutes left. You don't see Jar Jar again, except for like the battle sequence, and he can be an idiot over there because it's like fine.
Thank God.
But yeah, and I thought it was. I just think it's actually a lot. It's better than people give it credit for, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. Um, hey, speaking of movies that are better than people give it credit for,
Ooh,
uh,
Zach
we're
Goller,
gonna
number 8.
we're gonna go from the beginning of the saga to the very end of the saga. My number 8 is in fact Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
Um,
there we go.
Here's the thing. I really do not hate this movie like a lot of people do. I actually went back and saw it twice in the theater.
There you go.
I did not see it 3 times like Last Jedi. I think that's the reason why I have that considerably higher. Um, I mean, we covered a lot of it already. It just felt like a big, gigantic, bloated mess. And it
Right.
just felt like there were so many like different stories that were going in so many different directions. I really, really love the duel on top of that dilapidated,
Oh yeah.
like empirical ship.
Hmm.
Kylo Ren and Rey just up against all these like waves, and the water's all
Hmm.
magically like waving around them. It's just an amazing visual. I love, love, love also Kylo talking to Han Solo and his ghosts,
Hmm.
because Kylo Ren, I mean, in general, he was the most fleshed out character to come out of that trilogy, and
Yeah.
he came out of this movie pretty much unscathed. Um, Finn, Finn was really
Finn
Finn.
was there.
Finn was sidelined considerably, and
Dude, he
that
got done dirty.
it really made me upset because he was one of my favorite things coming out of the Force Awakens, and he
Right.
just felt like another person that was there.
Yeah,
you
dude,
know,
like, John Boyega himself was like, dude, Disney doesn't care about me. Like, they just drew me away. And he was upset, and
Unbelievable.
I was upset for him.
I was upset for him too. I was upset for Poe.
Dude,
Like
Poe Dameron.
I feel like even he got more interesting stuff in this than Finn did, and he was more of a side character in Force Awakens. like,
That's true.
um, like I mean, and I'll address it. I was kind of expecting Rey to be a relative of somebody.
Right.
I really liked where Ryan Johnson was going with how, Rey's just a nobody. You
Yeah.
know, I was actually half expecting her and Kylo to be siblings, which from the end of this movie kind of creeps me out a little bit. But um,
Yeah.
I mean, if that
Yeah.
were true,
Well, he would continue the Skywalker tradition of, kissing
yeah.
your sibling.
I didn't even think about that part. I feel ashamed now. I mean, like in the theater, the first time I watched it was with my brother, and I was sitting like, that whole big action sequence in the desert, and when Ray cuts that big ol' whatever you call the empirical fighting ships,
The
man,
transports or whatever, yeah.
the transports, yeah, the little like spherical things with the big ol' the Star Wars geeks will know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure they'll be
Yep.
like, "Oh, it's called this" in the comments, and then they'll be like, "Oh, Zach, unsubscribe. You're not a real fan." But no, she cuts that thing in half, and then later on in the duel, she's just shooting lightning out of her hands, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I elbow Jake, and I'm like, "She's a Palpatine. She is a Palpatine," and I'm like, "That
Hmm.
makes so much sense now." And like in perspective, again, that really did feel like it was kind of shoehorned in to make her a relative of
Hmm.
somebody, because Kylo already said she was nobody.
Right.
But then they're like, "Oh no, wait, no,
No,
she
wait.
actually is a relative to the biggest Sith Lord of all time." And
Yeah.
like,
Well, she's just a daughter of a clone.
yes, yeah,
So it's not the same thing.
it's not the same thing.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. I think it honestly, I feel it detracts from the entire message that the other past two films were building up to. It's like, Anakin himself came from nowhere, and
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea, I think, is that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can still do great things, and
You
power is
could
within everyone, etc.
anyone
But
can be a
no,
Jedi.
no, she's strong because this is the reason. It's like they tried to justify because everyone got angry at her. She's like, oh, she's just trying to. They're just giving her powers because she's a woman. It's like she needs to earn it. We're like, okay, well, how about if she's just a Palpatine and that's unearned power anyway, but it's super
Yeah,
vaguely justified. Like I hate that more than
you
the other
know,
stuff. I hate it.
and I will say, like, again, like to that point, the whole message of the trilogy just should have been anyone can be a Jedi regardless of their background or who their family is. Like it's the Harry Potter philosophy almost. You don't have to be born
Mm-hmm.
into magic to do it. Like Hermione was Muggle born and she's still able to do amazing things as a wizard. Rey could have been the Hermione of the Star Wars. I
Yep.
know that sounds very cliche to say that, but you definitely could have run with that story and they just decided not to. Just to
Yeah.
do a retread. Um, I will say though, as a hardcore fan, I was very like excited to hear Ian McDermott laugh in the trailer again. But
Oh
then I
yeah.
was just like, wait, why are they bringing him back? Isn't he dead?
Yeah. I love him as well. I love my Papa Palpatine, but
Oh yeah,
should maybe feel like he was. I don't know. They could have brought him back as like a Sith ghost and have her fight some
right,
other Sith evil, but
right.
I don't know.
Just like they brought Yoda back as a Force ghost in the Last Jedi, they could have done the same thing with
Yeah.
Palpatine there. But
Yeah.
um, I don't know, man. I still really enjoy Rise of Skywalker, regardless of us trashing it. But
Yeah.
um,
I love
I,
the part where Wedge comes in the end. Like that made me
yeah,
yell watching
oh
it. I
yeah,
love
for
Wedge
sure,
Antilles. He's like one of my
absolutely.
favorite side characters in all of Star Wars. So I was
I
like,
love
that's my
them.
boy.
I love them bringing back Lando also, but aside from
Yeah.
one scene where they run into him, he was mysteriously sidelined.
But he
But
had to be there because money and fans.
we gotta bring all the old fans
And
back.
and in all fairness, this is the last point before I move on to my number 7. They would have probably done a lot more if Carrie Fisher had not tragically passed away.
Yeah, yeah,
That,
that's
I
very true.
think, is something that no one expected, and I can't hold the movie, whatever faults it may have had because of that, I can't hold it
No,
against the directors because of that. So,
rest in peace,
um,
Carrie Fisher.
yeah,
But I mean,
of course.
honestly, um, again, I feel like they did what they could in Rise of Skywalker given the circumstances, and I think they had like other plans for the Leia character moving
Mm-hmm.
forward from the Last Jedi, but unfortunately, that's
Like, just it didn't work out, and
it
it's sad.
sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks. But yeah, already up to number 7.
Number 7 is The Force Awakens.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. I
Um,
okay.
I rewatched Force Awakens and I loved it. I forgot how good of a setup that movie was to the new trilogy, in just adding so many cool things: a new cool pilot, a new cool droid, this new mysterious masked dude who reminds us of Darth Vader. Now, to get
Mm-hmm.
my major criticism out of the way, it's basically a retread of Episode 4,
Yep.
but
Yep.
that's okay in some respects. It's lazy writing, but it's fine because they did enough unique with it to warrant it doing that thing again.
Oh, for sure.
I
Absolutely.
just, across the board, brilliant setup to a new trilogy. Like this being the next generation, like you brought back Han Solo, you brought back Leia, C3PO, you have this cool question like, where's Luke? He's gone. We don't know why. This new stuff. It's all very mysterious in the good ways, and it explains itself properly in the ways it matters. A cool little group forms between Finn and Rey and BB-8, and that's like the core. And it's just cool. It was all cool. I love the designs of the First Order. It felt
Yes.
original enough to be the new thing, but also the throwback design of the stormtroopers kind of shows the legacy of the empire that it is supposed to be. And it was cool. It was all just really cool.
Yeah. I have Force Awakens a little bit higher for sure. But I definitely see the point taken that it's just a retread of A New Hope, and it's just that for a new generation of fans.
Right.
Um, I'm sure I'll get into my reasons about why I have it higher. Um, I don't know how I want to put this. So the point with Han Solo, I love the fact that they brought Harrison Ford back.
Oh yeah.
Um, One thing I'll say to his storyline and how they revealed that Kylo Ren was just his son, that was honestly one of the relative reveals that made a lot of sense.
Hmm.
It made a heck of a lot more sense than Rey being a Palpatine, and just
Yeah.
the granddaughter. It made all the more sense that, Luke was training this new class of Jedi, and there was one that went rogue and it ends up being Han Solo's son. Like,
Hmm.
probably did that as a favor for Han. I'm sure he did. But
And yeah, I'm sad Han Solo died. There's
yeah,
still a part of me deep in my soul that thinks his death was unnecessary. But I understand why it happened, why they chose to do it, and it is in a lot of ways necessary to the further developing of Kylo Ren as a character. And
right.
the ending redemption of Kylo Ren through his father was brilliant. But
Well,
I just didn't want to see Han Solo die in the first new movie of
no.
the new trilogy. No one wanted to see him die. We walked on the bridge. We all knew he was going to die, and I
Yep.
didn't want it to happen.
Oh, me neither. I felt it coming like the first time I watched it, and I went back and saw it a couple more times after that. I specifically remember taking my mom to the theater to see it one time, and it was like the third time, so I knew it was coming. And Han Solo is her favorite character,
Hmm.
and I just didn't tell her anything, and she was distraught after that. I was, I mom, if you're watching this, I love you, but it's this was yeah, that was a that was an interesting day for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man. Do you one more question before I give you my
Right.
number seven? Do you think it would have been more effective if because there were rumors floating around that Harrison Ford actually wanted Han Solo to die in the original trilogy? Do you think it would have
Mm.
been more effective that way?
Well, I think if that had happened, Kylo Ren probably wouldn't have existed.
Yep. Yeah.
I think Han Solo had to survive into the next generation of movies.
Hmm.
Um, we all know Harrison Ford is not a turbo nerd about Star Wars. He doesn't care about the roles he plays, and that's respectable. He's one of the most
It's
beloved characters in all of the medium.
that's so
But
strange because he's so like I would argue that Force Awakens is his best performance as Han Solo.
right.
Like cuz he was just so funny. Like he just felt like so worn in and comfortable
Well,
doing
it's just
that.
him after doing how many years of acting? Like
That's
Star Wars was one of his like first roles ever, almost.
that's not how the Force
It
works.
works. That line is good. That's a good line.
Love that line. I love his banter with Chewie in there also.
Oh yeah,
Chewie
it brought me back.
complaining about the snow, and Han's just like, "Oh, really? You're cold?
Hmm.
You're cold. You of all people, or
It's good.
beings, or whatever you are, a Wookiee." Um, but yeah. So on to my number seven. Ironically enough, on that subject, it is Solo. Um,
Wow.
you
Okay.
know, this was again. I think I touched on this when I was talking about Rogue One just moments ago.
Hmm.
The thing that I think is playing to this movie's disadvantage is that Disney Plus did not exist when it came out
Hmm.
because we were not getting enough time with Lando, played by Donald Glover, masterfully, by the way. We weren't
Oh
getting
yeah.
enough time with Woody Harrelson's character. We weren't getting enough time with Kira, played by Emilia Clarke, who, from Game of Thrones, she's like the best thing out of Game of Thrones. Um, she's like okay, she's Han's love interest and she's a bad guy by the end who's aligned with Darth Maul for some reason. Like it was cool to see Darth Maul, but
Oh yeah. That was so awesome.
what the heck are you doing here? Like,
That's some Star Wars interconnected storytelling that they borrowed from the Marvel universe. Thanks, John Favreau.
Thank you, John Favreau and Lord Feige. But again, like I feel like if Han got his own series on Disney Plus, like Lando's gonna get, and I'm sure Donald Glover's returning for that, but
Yeah.
like I think like imagine like Han actually freeing Chewie out of that prison. That could be its own episode in and of itself, and I think it would have been paced a lot better. That was another thing. This movie's pacing, I feel like, was a little bit off. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I feel like if you had paced it out like this, I was hoping, they were gonna do with this what they're doing with the Mandalorian right now.
Right.
Just an old-fashioned, like almost spaghetti western in a lot of ways.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, because there was another reviewer on YouTube that compared Mando to the Man with No Name, the Clint Eastwood famous spaghetti western character. I wanted Han Solo to be like that. I really did, but kind of underwhelming, but still fun. It's still fun. It's not a bad Star Wars movie at all.
Right. It's not, and I think coincidentally, Solo is my number 6.
Oh, there it is.
Look
okay.
at that.
No, put in the editing here. Number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah,
like midway
Solo.
Transitions. It's Solo. And I understand a lot of your pacing agreements and with the perspective we now have of Disney Plus and what Disney can do with a series, Solo would have been just as good probably as The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Agreed.
And but with what they did with it, it was good. It was, I think, a brilliant origin story to Han Solo. And his character. It explains a lot of the reasons. Honestly, we could have a a Solo post series that builds off of this in the relationship between Chewie and Han Solo, and that would be an amazing series.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
I anticipate perhaps we could see a bit of Han Solo and Chewbacca in the Lando series, which would be awesome. But I think it's one of those really good mediums because it takes place pretty much between episode 3 and episode 4, very early Empire, which is a very interesting period of time in Star Wars. I loved everything. It was just really good. The origins of the Kessel Run, which was super cool. I did not expect to see a giant beast inside of the Kessel Run, which was super awesome.
I was, speaking of origin stories, I was really happy to see how Chewie was aligned with Han Solo in the first place. That was a really cool thing to see, and to see that explained finally. Because, we see Han with Chewie in A New Hope, and we're just like, how does Han understand him? How does, why are these two aligned? Similar to how, the blind guy and the Samoan guy are aligned in Rogue One. Never explained still. But here they explained why Han and Chewie are aligned to begin with. And another thing also, I really, really hope that Alden Ehrenreich, if Han is going to be included in the Lando series, I hope they bring Alden Ehrenreich back, because I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he was. Like,
it was good.
He is seriously, not just here. I just feel like he is getting the wrong projects to really propel his name to the top. I mean, Solo's a fine project, but a lot of people were just like, "Oh, he's just copying off what Harrison Ford did. He's not going to go anywhere."
It's what Ewan McGregor did when he played Obi-Wan.
Right. Yeah,
that's not a valid argument.
And somehow Ewan McGregor is the more famous Obi-Wan now.
That's because he's alive.
Anyway, yeah. Forget I.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's fun. I think that's the best way to describe it. So it's fun.
Absolutely,
it's fun with Star Wars.
Speaking of fun Star Wars, my number 6 is definitely fun Star Wars. You're gonna be so mad at me for this. This is where I put Revenge of the Sith.
Really?
Yeah, I put Revenge of the Sith at number 6. Yeah,
I'm a little irked.
Partially because the reason why I have Force Awakens and Last Jedi both over this, I did not get the chance to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters.
Really?
So I did not have that, nostalgia with it. I watched it at home and it was cool. It's easily the best of the prequels.
Oh yeah,
far and away.
Put it on the shelf.
I mean, yeah, it isn't it isn't saying much to be the best of the Star Wars prequels, but that's what Revenge of the Sith is. That's just a fact. Um, I love the reveal of Hayden Christensen in the Darth Vader suit. I mean, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how cheesy or over the top he is, like it was cool. Ewan McGregor, that is a great duel. It
Oh yeah.
is one of the great ones. I think another reason why I have Revenge of the Sith towards the middle of the pack and towards the top, rather, if you want to, call 6 up, top tier.
Yeah.
There is a tradition at my neighbor's house where he was in the Marine Corps for a while. Shout out to Brody, by the way, if you're watching this. But every time he came home, he would hold a barbecue and he would play Revenge of the Sith, specifically just Revenge of the Sith. Like, he wouldn't play any other Star Wars movie. It was just Revenge of the Sith. And my friends would be sitting there and they'd be all drunkenly quoting Hayden Christensen's over the top dialogue, and it's just a fun time.
Oh yeah.
It's really the best thing I can really say about it.
I will have plenty to say on Revenge of the Sith as well, as it is much higher on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of the Star Wars movies I hold close to my heart, and I can explain more why. But I agree, it's a good time. The slowest points, I don't know, like really, if like the slowest points probably when Obi-Wan's on Utapau, if fighting General Grievous, that's
Yeah.
probably the slowest point. And maybe like the Senate stuff when Hayden's just talking to Palpatine, but that's also just so rich with we know who that is, and we see the manipulation.
We know who that is, yeah, and just seeing
Or
like Chancellor Palpatine's evolution into the monster he becomes is just really, really cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, and his duels through all the prequels are great.
Oh yeah.
Love his duel with Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
That is another one of the fun ones. Yeah, it's definitely, when I think of Star Wars, like I just think of fun, and I think Revenge of the Sith is like a true essence of that.
Yep.
So which was something the prequels were truly lacking. And that's another thing. The prequels all felt like their own, like, again, they all felt like their own presence. And like when the prequels are over, it's like, yeah, okay, that was awesome. Wait, we have to see another one? That's
I think Force Awakens did a good job with the fun. I think that one was pretty fun in a lot of places. Like the fight on Takodana was fun, and then the ending duel was fun. So,
oh yeah, for sure. But at this point, we are halfway
top
through
5.
This, top 5, baby.
Top 5 banner card. Put the top 5 banner card right there.
Yes,
Officially.
absolutely. Yeah. So if you guys are enjoing this so far, again, just a reminder, hit that subscribe button as hard as you possibly can if you haven't.
Leave all of your comments about why we're wrong as well, so we can fight you about
I'm curious to hear your guys' rankings down in the comments. And yes, please tell us how wrong we are. Because we're gonna have some serious debates down there. But
remember, all opinions are valid. All opinions are valid, even if they're wrong. So,
yes, indeed. All right, what you got? Number 5.
My number 5 Star Wars movie is. Let's see if we start matching up here, because we might.
We might.
Number 5 is Return of the Jedi.
Okay. All right. Number 5.
Number 5, I think. I feel it is. The ending is probably the better part of that movie. The beginning part, while awesome, like the fighting of the Rancor is visually awesome, and the middle bit when they're like going on Endor is cool. It's really the end part of Return of the Jedi that is the most iconic, if you think about it. Like when you remember Return of the Jedi, you don't remember Luke walking in the woods. You remember him in the throne room fighting his father, trying to bring him back to the light side. And you remember the rebels fighting against the stormtroopers desperately and on Endor, and then getting saved by the Ewoks. and you remember the starships flying around through the Death Star and blowing up, and you remember our Admiral Akbar, it's a trap, and then you see the ship gets blown apart by the laser because
Yes,
oh
it
crap, the
is.
ship is active.
Yes, you beautiful weird fish creature thing.
You
It's
goldfish
a
looking.
trap. It's a trap.
All of that movie is good. And that's not to detract from the beginning part. It's paced wonderfully. That tension at the Sarlacc pit is awesome, and it's all very well done. It's not bad. It's far from bad. It's some of the best Star Wars there is. But I feel like it has to be number 5 only because the latter half is as iconic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
If
for
that
sure.
makes sense.
I have it just a tad bit higher personally,
Mm-hmm.
and I can go into more details as to why. But I mean, when I think of Return of the Jedi, I think of it's just the end of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Or so we thought it was the end of it all.
Right.
Um, I think of that funeral scene, and this is something that a lot of people tend to overlook. Luke is the only one there at Darth Vader's funeral.
Yep.
He is the only one. I mean, granted,
Force ghosts are over there, but
for
like
good
physically
reason.
there.
For
Yeah.
good reason, because Darth Vader was a jerk to a lot of people. But
Blew up a lot of stuff.
yeah, he did. He was, but yeah, Luke was the only one there, and it's a really powerful thing to see. Just him watching his dad and his corpse, go up in flames. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
man, there's something definitely. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I don't want to say
Powerful.
powerful. Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say euphoric, but I don't think it was, dreamlike in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. But yeah, Return of the Jedi is your number 5. My
Yes.
number 5 is The Last Jedi.
Ah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
insert clever little there. So let me address this.
Explain
Last
yourself, sir.
Last Jedi is one of the most well-made, I think, of the Star Wars films. If we're speaking technically, I think Rian Johnson came in and he had a bunch of ideas of where to take the Star Wars universe where
Mm-hmm.
it had never been done before. And I think this is same reason, part of why I love Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire so much is
Mm-hmm.
because there was a new director that came in and he was taking Harry Potter to darker places that we'd never really seen before. Um, and Rian Johnson, I feel like, came in and did the same. And I don't want to say he was messing with the lore per se. He was asking us like age old questions, and he was like really pondering, what could happen if Jedi's flew? Like, what could happen, if, how do I put this? What could happen, if Rey was, just a nobody? What could
Mm-hmm.
happen, if the Jedi could speak, telepathically, which I think was a really, really neat idea. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think that was like the most fascinating aspect of The Last Jedi was the Rey and Kylo Ren dynamic and Luke Skywalker, of course. And that's another thing. This is my favorite Mark Hamill performance, not just as Luke Skywalker, but of his entire career. This was something else. He it's funny because like he's just like a recluse, but he's accepted that. And he's not like Yoda per se.
Right.
He's not like quirky or anything like that. He does throw in a lot of quirky one-liners. And that's another thing. Last Jedi's really funny. A lot of people don't
It's
give
got
that
some good
enough
humor
credit.
in there.
Yeah. Like best example I can think of, Mark Hamill as Luke is asking Rey where she's from, and she's like, nowhere. Oh, come on. Nobody's from nowhere. Jakku? Okay, that is pretty much nowhere.
That's
Like,
nowhere.
big laugh in the theater when I saw it the first time. Great. Luke in this movie was just unreal.
Right.
He's not like Yoda from Empire. He's kind of accepted his situation and he is adapting to it. And how he and the idea of Force Ghosts is introduced here also,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that had never been done in a Star Wars film before, really, except for at the very end of Return of the Jedi. But
Right.
he really, Rian Johnson really played around a lot with that idea. it was just really cool. And again, we touched on that climax already. Loved it. Loved every second of it, except for one. Oh man. Okay.
I
I
can't
saw
wait
that.
to hear what your
I saw this movie in the
grumpy thing
theater
is.
3 times. The first time I did not take any bathroom breaks at all because I wanted to see like every second of it, and that was a
Okay.
mistake by the end. Just long story short, but every time I went back, I knew exactly where the bathroom break was. Do you mind guessing where that bathroom break was, Andrew?
Um, is it the escape from Canto Bite?
Anytime on Canto Bite, I saw that and I was like, "Oh, sweet! I get a bathroom
I
break
could
now."
go to the bathroom.
My lord! Like it felt like its own. Oh, God, it felt like a distraction from everything else. It made me so mad, and like I don't have a problem with Rose at all. I don't have a problem with the actress at all. But the way they handled this character was so terrible. Like she's just a fangirl of Finn, basically, and she's like, "Oh, it isn't about helping those we." I don't even remember the line exactly because it just makes me so mad. It's about saving the ones we love, and I'm like, "Get out of here, man! Like this is too cheesy." Like,
And then like she awkwardly kisses him. He's just standing there like, "Wow, what?" He's confused. He's like, "What did you just say?"
yeah, I didn't
I
like that at all.
I appreciate your words, and I can agree with you. Actually, I've actually very much agree with you on the most. I honestly could say The Last Jedi probably is the most beautiful Star Wars film, and it
Yeah.
is like there are so many amazing cinematic moments in that movie. I think I touched on that, like the beginning with like the just fight in the space was cool. The sacrifice of Emmeline Holdo. I didn't like her character that much, but her sacrifice was one of the coolest
Mm-hmm.
moments in Star Wars. Like just the silence of the ship ramming through all the other ships.
So beautiful. The
The
sound,
fight
the sound
on
design in this film is something else. Um,
the fight on Crate between Kylo Ren and it is probably the most beautiful. There's just so many awesome moments of just honestly screenshot worthy is the word to use. It is you just so many moments where you can just and freeze frame. I want that as my background. Like Kylo standing in front of the window, the sunset duel with all the fighters and walkers in the background.
mm-hmm.
Just so many beautiful moments.
I mean, I just want Kylo like looking out over like the whole like whatchamacallit, like the First Order, like, battle fleet. Like him just looking through that window is just a beautiful, beautiful shot. Um,
And of course, we can't forget that throne room duel.
yes.
One
And
of the greatest duels in all of Star Wars.
I will say also, I flipped out when they just killed Snoke right there. Because I
It
was
was
like,
bold and the necessary move.
where the heck do they go now? Because I'm
I
like,
liked it.
I liked it too, but I was like, I I thought he had another movie in him.
I like it because of the dynamic, and this extends, as you were saying, about why Kylo Ren is probably the most fleshed out character. He says in The Force Awakens, "I will finish what you started," and he's trying to like be Darth Vader. Like Snoke's like, "You're not Darth Vader. You're just a kid in a mask." Well, he did what Darth Vader never could. He killed his master.
Yes.
And that is very powerful to me, and shows a lot about Kylo Ren's character development. And it was awesome. I mean, like I know a lot of people were upset. It's like, well, why you bring the character in if you're just gonna kill him? Like Snoke was a tool and he served his purpose. He was a literal tool, as we learned, and that was not a cool thing. But it's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's all fine. It's all fine. It's all part of the plan.
It's all part of the plan.
Yeah, to run it back to another Mark Hamill character. But yeah. I
No,
love The
Heath
Last
Ledger.
Jedi. Yeah. Or Heath Ledger. It's been a long, long week.
Oh my gosh.
But number four.
Number 4 is The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm very curious to see why this is only number 4.
And it's number 4. I know it is a lot of people's favorite Star Wars movies, and it is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. My number 1 Star Wars movie is only my number 1 because of the emotional connection I have to it.
Mm.
Number 5, episode
Hmm.
5, I should say, is, as I saw someone say this about it on the internet the other day, and I agree with it. It's the most important sequel in all of cinema.
Yes.
It is the most important sequel. Everything good about a movie happened in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it was just character development, Yoda, Bespin, the duel between Luke and Vader, the duel in Dagobah, Han Solo and Carbonite, Boba Fett. Um,
Yeah.
all of it was just so awesome. And I love the decision, like what I was talking about with Return of the Jedi. There's complete beginning, middle, end. There's an iconic moment. The beginning is the Battle of Hoth and the AT-ATs. The middle is Yoda, and the end is the duel between Darth Vader and Luke, and the reveal that I am your father. And it is I restate again, the most important sequel
Mm-hmm.
in. It's the best sequel actually in the entire Star Wars saga, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, without question. I am more than happy to dig into my love for The Empire Strikes Back in a little bit, but one thing I'll say right now about it, Yoda is absolutely incredible. He is like this. The things that Frank Oz was able to do with the character are just unreal.
Oh yeah.
And all of that stuff with Luke and Yoda, the training, so incredible. I love that dynamic. And also, I will say, side note, Yoda gives Luke the best insults you will ever hear in a movie. Luke's like, I don't believe it. That is why you fail.
That
Like it,
that whole scene is so awesome with the music.
yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
John Williams' score once again just delivers on all cylinders.
Kiss your brain with that
Chef's
melody.
kiss.
Mwah,
Yes,
chef's
absolutely.
salt, like the salt dude, just like make it end there.
Where's the Swedish chef when you need him?
Oh my gosh, this is Frank Oz.
Yeah,
Muppets.
different.
Yoda's
Frank,
a Muppet, confirmed.
yeah, Yoda is a Muppet technically. But my number 4 is actually the film that came out right after Empire: Return of the Jedi. We were just talking about it.
We were just talking about it.
The only thing that I really think Return of the Jedi fails to accomplish, really, it's not a whole lot, but I wanted more Yoda. He gets
Understandable.
he gets like one scene right before he dies, which confirms that Grogu is not Baby Yoda, Lauren. Don't don't even give me that right now. But yeah, I understand the meme. He's Yoda's species, but come on now. But yeah, Yoda's dead, before the Mandalorian. And we also Boba Fett like did not get a whole lot of screen time.
Goes out like a punk.
A lot of people said he died, but those who watched season 2 of The Mandalorian are just like, oh wait, no, Boba Fett's not dead.
Dude, I knew they
What
couldn't
the
have killed him off.
I thought for the longest time that was how they killed Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, but then I was just like rewatching it. I was like, no, like that couldn't have been a way to kill him. Well, like, yeah,
Right.
a faulty jetpack is just like, okay, yeah, he falls from a big height. That's something that could certainly kill a person, but like it just seems like a flimsy way to go out,
Mm-hmm.
Like
It's
for a character as amazing as Boba Fett is,
mm-hmm.
like it just felt anticlimactic. But everything else about Return of the Jedi, the very definition of climactic.
Oh yeah.
It was so cool to see all of that stuff unfold again. Even though a lot of the effects don't exactly hold up these days, like a lot of the green screen effects kind of looked fake, but it's still really cool. I love how much of a badass Luke became at that point. And the green lightsaber, like the whole look
Awesome.
with the metal hand, just oh man, Luke was awesome. Yes. Yeah,
Chef's
absolutely.
kiss.
And the whole idea of Palpatine, like trying to coax Luke to the dark side. There's one little shot of him that I don't think gets enough credit also. The camera looks head on at Luke, and you
Hmm.
have half of his face in shadow, but
Hmm.
only have half of his face lit up, like he's conflicted.
Oh yeah, lighting and all of I think a lot of the Star Wars movies is fantastic. They do a lot of good
So
stuff
great.
with lighting.
So great. And then
Oh
they
man,
and then they bring back Palpatine after they killed him. But
and they ruined it. But
beside the point. But
that's I'm done ranting about why that movie had so many mistakes. We're gonna talk about the good stuff. We're gonna talk about the good stuff.
yes. Speaking of the good stuff, we're into the
Top
top
three.
three.
Top three.
Top
Put the
three.
graphic. Put the graphic editor. Top three.
Number 3.
Number 3. And my number 3 to your irking
Oh
is
no.
Rogue One.
There. I kind of expected that with your reaction earlier, but I'm
Um,
interested to hear why it's so high.
I like Rogue One for a lot of the reasons. For every reason you said, to me it elevates it above, because was this the first Disney Star Wars movie, or was it the second one?
I believe it was the second one. The first one was Force
Okay.
Awakens.
This is the first Star Wars movie that wasn't a trilogy movie.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of expectation on it. A lot of things you're like, we don't know what was going to happen. And the fact that they chose to do this boots on the ground guerrilla Vietnam warfare style movie, but like you said, it's a war movie. They chose to do
Mm-hmm.
a Star Wars war movie, like Saving Private Ryan style, of just these are people who have consequences, and don't they don't they bring back so much nostalgia, but they don't like wallow in it, right?
Oh yeah.
They brought it back, like the entire ending battle when the X, like that shot where the X-wing's in hyperspace and it comes out of hyperspace over Scarif, and the whole fleet arrives, and they're doing all the call signs. It's just like it was so new, but it brought you back to episode 4
It's so cool.
and the original trilogy. And they brought back the old footage of Gold Squadron, and I lost my mind when that happened. And it was so awesome. And Red Leader was so awesome. And like they use so much old stuff. And I am one of the people who did not mind at all the CGI Grand Moff Tarkin, because Grand Moff Tarkin is one of my favorite Star Wars characters, even though he was only in one movie. Just like he was a good bad guy, and he's manipulative, and he takes credit for the entire Death Star, even though Krennic built it, and he gets mad about it for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And and I 100% agree that there is some serious characterization issues with the main cast. But to me, I can kind of put it aside almost to understand that, well, this is about this main group of people. It's focused more on Jin. She has the most development, but it's about. I feel the movie's about an event. It's about the theft of the Death Star plans. It's about the
Yeah.
rise of the rebellion. Almost, it's about that hope that sparked the rest of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that kind of just elevates it to a whole new level. And it's like we said, it's fun. It's got blaster fights. It's got stormtroopers getting shot. It's got the Death Troopers, who are awesome.
Yeah.
It has Darth Vader going ham in a hallway, murdering people with a lightsaber.
Just
And
wiping everybody out. That was
you
my
had
favorite
no
part of it.
chance, zero chance of
Yeah,
life.
zero. Like, oh man, that was so cool. I was just geeking out
That was
watching
Star
that.
Wars horror. That's probably the closest we'll get so far to Star Wars horror.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's an amazing way to put it. It was
that's terrifying.
horrifying. Yeah, it was so cool to watch, and I was just sitting there like, here's my thing. I respect your opinion, of course. And I really respect Rogue One for also answering an ages old Star Wars question. How in the
Mm-hmm.
blazes did Leia get these Death Star plans? like, how did this all come about? And I love how the filmmakers were exploring that and answering those questions. But at the same time, I watched that Darth Vader scene at the end, and I was like, where was this through the rest of the movie?
Right.
Where was this cool action? I mean, well, you get cool action, but like the characters that I was invested in really did not get a whole lot of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, except for K2SO, who was all over the place, but
I have a soft spot for his actor. He's funny.
Alan Tudyk is.
I have a soft spot for Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, I believe he
in Firefly.
Yeah, I believe he played Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball.
And
That's
he was Steve the Pirate.
Him. Yeah,
he's a good actor, and I have a soft spot for him.
I get him and Stephen Root mixed up all the time, but
Yeah.
but yeah, Rogue One is definitely solid. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, obviously, but oh man,
number 3 Zack,
for me,
number 3.
Force Awakens.
There you
Force
go.
Awakens. Yeah, this is easily the best out of the sequel trilogy for me. Just because there was so much excitement, not only before, but after.
Right.
I remember seeing this in theaters. I went with my dad actually on Christmas Day when it came out to see it for the first time. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, very early Christmas to all the viewers out there also. But the theater was so packed that day that my dad and I got tickets to sit right there in the front row. And we were dead center. But we didn't care. It was a very investing experience, and I went back a couple more times to check it out again just because I loved it that much. I love all these characters. I love the whole idea of a stormtrooper going rogue because he doesn't think any of this is right. And then he's, bafflingly sidelined to the other two. He gets one interesting character arc in The Force Awakens, and then they're just like,
now go to a casino planet and run away.
Which does not feel like a galaxy far, far away at all.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I really love Rey. I thought BB-8 was gonna be annoying, but thankfully he wasn't.
He's a good droid.
He is a good, comedic character. He is not Jar Jar Binks, thankfully.
No.
I love the return of Han. I already said I love his banter with Chewie. Kylo Ren, to me, though, such a fascinating villain because I was not expecting him to take his mask off. Seeing that in theaters, I was like, man, this is a really captivating villain. I feel like, to me, a movie is only as good as its villain. And the more captivating and more, the more you understand, like, the villain's motivations, like, I just think that makes for a better narrative, personally.
I agree. I agree with that, actually. The Force Awakens, and I understand why it's your number 3. I think given in another universe, maybe it would have been my number 3 as well, because it was just such a solid setup to the new trilogy. Aside, everything that happened after aside, it was a good Star Wars movie, and despite its retreads, it did enough new, and it did enough good, and did enough very well to warrant its place in Star Wars, and it was awesome.
It was a new hope for a new generation, for sure. Yeah. And one more thing I want to address before we move on to number 2. A lot of people, like, right after Force Awakens came out, because I remember this was when I worked at the movie theater when it came out, but the backlash that it got because Luke was not in it very much was so
that's ridiculous.
Baffling to me. Yeah. I was like, you guys are missing the whole point. This movie was not about Luke. It was about finding Luke, right? But once they do find him, you have to wait for episode 8.
Yeah, you don't get Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, you don't get Luke Skywalker until 2017. So, calm yourselves. It's I just think that's another thing. I feel like this narrative was laid out so perfectly.
Yeah. It was good.
From a beginning, middle, and end standpoint, how they get from point A to point B to point C, it's like textbook storytelling. And like the way the movie ends also with Rey extending the lightsaber out to Luke, which I didn't even address. Another reason why I love The Last Jedi, what Luke did with that lightsaber once he got it,
Threw it away.
it was such a great experience in the theater seeing that for the first time, because you could hear so many audible gasps when that
Like,
happened.
hey,
Like,
wait a minute!
I was just sitting there like I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my god, what did he just do? Like, and everybody else around me was just like, what is going on? What is this guy's deal? But The Force Awakens, I think it gets the idea of a cliffhanger just right. You know, her handing it over, and I know a lot of people hate cliffhangers, but they're effective tools to get you to want to go back to the theater. And I think that's what The Force Awakens did. I wanted to turn on Episode 8 right then and there, but you can do that now, you know.
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. No,
but I mean, back when it came out,
Disney Plus.
I was like, okay, where's Episode 8? And I'm like, oh,
and another year.
Yeah, another
couple of years.
Yeah, but yeah, Force Awakens is number 3.
It's respectable.
Oh, we are getting down to the nitty gritty. Number 2.
Number 2. My number's 2. Second favorite Star Wars film is Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, man. There it is. Revenge of the Sith.
There are many reasons I love this movie, but I think the overall dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan, it is the climax of the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
The culmination of the manipulation of Emperor Palpatine. It's the culmination of so much that the Rise of Skywalker wasn't. Like,
yeah,
it was just awesome. Like, we had so much memory from the episode 4 of just, this is what, your dad was my best friend, and he was killed by Darth Vader. Just kidding. Darth Vader's your dad, and that's really sucked. And then to see that fall, and it was just awesome. It is good, and the Order 66 is palpably sad. The deaths of the Jedi and how it happens, the ultimate betrayal. And Order 66 is just magnified even more tragically with the context of the Clone Wars and all that. It was just good. It opens amazing. It opens with that shot of the Star Destroyer over the city, the plane, the dog fighting is awesome. The banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan, solidifying even more their friendship, fighting Count Dooku, and then Anakin just said, "And you're dead." Everyone's like, "Oh, okay, wait, what?" And then just there's so much. We talked about it a lot, I think, and with yours too, and a lot of the good stuff. But it is just great.
It really is.
Ways.
It's
really
subtle.
It's subtly great in like a lot of points. It's loud when it needs to be, and hauntingly quiet when it needs to be. Like the two most, like the two, I use the word haunting because that's what it is. Those two scenes I think of is the opera when he's at the space opera with Palpatine, and the
literally the space opera.
The space
opera, because
opera.
it is a space opera.
And the second one is that scene with that just little bit of music that like kind of like Star Wars nerds will know what that song is, but when when it cuts between Anakin and Padme, like, and it cuts between them on Coruscant, it just shows that conflict, and it's awesome.
It's beautiful filmmaking. It is just, again, it is the essence of what Star Wars should be. It's just good, plain fun. It definitely feels like the ending of a trilogy, which is definitely a strength that it has compared to the other two, mediocre prequels. But it's so I really dig Revenge of the Sith. I had a point I was gonna make, and I just lost my train of thought. Of course, but it's definitely very fun. And I cannot wait to see what they do with the highly anticipated Obi-Wan series that's coming
Obi-Wan
out.
series.
Oh yeah, they got both of those guys back. That
And
is what.
yeah, it's awesome. That's honestly another reason I love it so much is just Ewan McGregor sells that whole movie, and Hayden Christensen does a great job. I
Yeah,
think.
he is certainly better than a lot of people give him credit for.
I would say that as well.
Yeah,
I say that's true as well. Like, he cares. Him and Natalie Portman acting together aren't terrible. Like, it's good. It's
yeah,
probably the best it was in
and
Revenge of the Sith.
all this talk is finally making me remember my point. You
It's good.
mentioned earlier that Anakin, like, this is basically the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. I am a huge fan of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
This whole prequel trilogy felt very Shakespearean in a lot of
Oh yeah,
ways, because you got your fun, Phantom Menace, it's kind of silly, but then you got your kind of boring Attack of the Clones, which there's certainly some boring Shakespeare out there.
yeah.
And then you have Revenge of the Sith, which is just like the Scottish play, I guess you can say, of the prequel trilogy. Any theater geek who knows that reference will certainly know what I'm talking about there. Um, it's basically just a big giant Shakespearean tragedy, except the main character doesn't die.
Right. Well, in a way, he does. In a way, he does.
Yeah.
He dies and is reborn as
Figuratively.
Darth Vader. Figuratively, he dies. He still has his body, but it's just destroyed beyond recognition. He essentially is reborn as a new person.
His face is all mangled, and it's just all he has to
He
wear a
embraces
mask.
his hate.
Yeah, he embraces the hate like John Cena should have back in 2012, according to Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. But anyway, my number two.
Number two, Zach.
Yeah, my number two is A New Hope.
Really?
Yeah. So process of elimination. There are your number ones, my friends. But
There it is.
of course, we'll reveal them when we get to them. But I mean, A New Hope is just. This was the only Star Wars film that was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, and I certainly think it got its recognition, and it was well deserved. It was a game changer. It was, after Jaws, this was like the first true blockbuster in cinema. Jaws, I consider the first one, but Star Wars started a whole phenomenon that's stretching out decades. Jaws never did that. Jaws came out with a lot of really mediocre...
Jaws sequels were not great.
Yeah, no, there can only be one Jaws. The other sequels don't exist. But
and Sharknado.
We're not going to talk about all 9 of those.
Star Wars doesn't
movies.
have its own Sharknado. It's
no. No, but like A New Hope is definitely it's over Force Awakens because it did
it first.
it did that story first, basically. And like, I mean, Mark Hamill is good as Luke in this. I wouldn't say he's great like he is in The Last Jedi. He can get a little whiny in A New Hope, and it can kind of get on your nerves a lot of the time. But I just think his whole arc just doesn't take one movie. It's got to take the whole trilogy for that whole arc to feel warranted, So I feel like that's kind of what holds A New Hope back from me a little bit, is just like, it just doesn't really feel like the arcs are fully complete yet, which is fine. It's the first one in the trilogy. But man, just everything about A New Hope, they did it right for sure.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of, with process of elimination, number one.
Number one is A New Hope. And there it is.
There it is.
I have so much love for it. It's probably a Star Wars movie I've seen the most, and Revenge of the Sith is consequently second. It actually is a descending order of the number of times I've seen each Star Wars movie.
Wow. There you go.
It is, and it has, honestly, like probably my favorite moment in all of Star Wars is that scene where he's on the hill looking at the sunset and the music kicks in right there. And it's that iconic scene is, I think, it just embodies so much about what Star Wars means to me, of just like that
beautiful
whatever that scene makes you feel is the embodiment of Star Wars. And like what you're saying, Luke is of course whiny in that movie, but I think that's if you look at his overall arc in the movie, that's Of course, he's just this kid in the desert who knows nothing about the wider galaxy, and
Right.
he's thrown all this new information. And I think over the course of the movie, you see him go from whiny to an actual, he becomes the hero of the rebellion, the kid who blew up the Death Star. And, and all the talk. And even though, like, we see the lightsaber in it and it's a good setup, it gets so much development later, but, like, it's mystical and it's cool. It's the perfect setup. Like you said, it is a good piece of cinema. It
It's
is one of the best films ever made. If
it's
you look at
historical.
it's
It is
historical.
a game changer, to say the least. It is like, honestly, George Lucas had an idea, and a lot of people were not huge believers in it, but he was, and
He
it's
did it.
honestly he did it, and it's really inspiring how he did it.
Oh yeah.
And now look at where it is. It's got a whole bunch of TV shows that are on the horizon now. It's got its whole universe now, which is, kind of stealing from Marvel's idea, but not to not to not to
I mean,
rain on that
even
parade
before
too much.
Disney bought it, Star Wars had its own thing. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that Marvel and DC had over it was movies. Star Wars's
Mm-hmm.
power was in books and comics and stuff. Like, before Disney bought it, if you were into the Star Wars books and into the comics, there was so much there, so much great stuff. Like, a better sequel to the Star Wars trilogy than there almost some people would argue that there was, because
Mm-hmm.
of villains like Grand Admiral Thrawn and the
Yeah.
Yuzong Wrong and even the kids of Luke Skywalker and the kids of Han Solo and Leia, and there's just so much goodness in there. But going back to A
Oh,
New Hope,
totally.
um, just for me, it's just the one. There's just so much sentimental value from the storm. I love the stormtroopers, their menacing look, even though, and everyone's like, "Oh, the stormtroopers can't aim," but you remember the beginning scene where only one stormtrooper died in the cramped hallway.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Got
It
to
has
build them up as threats.
yeah,
And
it has
then,
Grand Moff Tarkin in it, and I love Grand Moff Tarkin. He's just this dude. He's like, "Oh, princess, I'm gonna blow your planet up." Like, whoa. And Darth Vader fighting Obi-Wan is like, "Hey, master," and then they fight, and then Luke flying
yeah.
the Death Star battle. It is, of course, like you said. I think about Return of the Jedi. There's like some stuff. It's like, oh, that's antiquated, but when it was released, like, that was game-changing,
Yeah.
industry-defining visual effects, and it's awesome. Just so much good about it.
Yeah. It really showed that Star Wars was here to stay. And it really, like, it told you that there would never be anything like this again.
Mm-hmm.
But then 3 years later,
Leading us into Zack Goller's number one pick.
they came out with The Empire Strikes Back. This, you touched on it earlier. It is the best sequel ever made, and in my opinion, it's a cliche pick. This is my favorite Star Wars film because I feel like they took everything that they did right about The New Hope. If A New Hope is right here, they took everything in The Empire Strikes Back and they just ups the ante all
Bring
the
it
way up
to
here.
11.
Yeah, it was. They brought Star Wars to darker places than A New Hope did not show people.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I feel like the score in Empire Strikes Back is way better because you have one theme in there that A New Hope miraculously does not include, the Imperial March.
It's
It
true.
is.
Well, yeah.
You
I
have
mean, you also have Yoda's theme in there, but
right, yeah, but you have really like low tones whenever they show
mm-hmm.
Darth Vader in A New Hope, but he gets his own theme song here, and in many ways, this is like Darth Vader's movie.
Oh yeah.
He is like he has his objectives. Very compelling villain, one of the most famous villains in cinema history, but he has his objective, and it kind of it shows the heroes and villains both their journeys, but it really does feel like Darth Vader's journey in a lot of ways, I would argue. Similar to how they did with Thanos in Infinity War a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because he pretty much gets what he wants. And it's just left with like, oh no, the good guys are in peril. Han is frozen in carbonite. Oh no, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, and they had to wait 3 years. They didn't have the Return of the Jedi VHS tape to pop in and find out what happens right after that. I honestly couldn't imagine sitting in the theaters in 1980 and being like, oh my God, I have to wait to find out what's next.
Yeah.
Like,
It's stressful.
shows you, like, oh,
It's
man.
it is, I said enough about it, I think, in my number 4 spot, but it is so good in so many ways.
Yes, Han and Leia's relationship is taken to a
Mhm.
whole new level. The "I love you, I know" thing
Oh yeah.
was just heartbreaking, moves me to tears sometimes when I rewatch it. Yoda, of course,
Iconic.
just so funny. But one last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up here. I think the reason why Empire is at the top of my list is because I love plot twists. I'm a huge fan of them. And I would
Yeah.
argue that Empire Strikes Back has the best plot twist in cinema history.
Yeah.
When Darth Vader says, of course, I don't have to repeat the line, but
We had our expectations established, like, oh, Darth, this is the guy that killed Luke's dad, and he's fighting him. Luke's trying to get revenge for his dad. And then, just kidding. And he cuts off, and he has his hand cut off. You're like, what? And he loses the lightsaber, and like you're saying, it is probably the ultimate cliffhanger too.
Oh, yeah.
It's just very good. It is very, very good.
And it's just incredible filmmaking. Rest in peace, Irving Kershner. He did an incredible job directing this. But originally, when Luke falls down that big shaft, it's like, when Vader says, like, join me, we can rule the world together, or rule the galaxy, rather. Luke chooses death over that. Like, he's not falling to escape Darth Vader. He is willingly committing suicide, basically. Like, he doesn't know he's going to survive that. Like, he would rather die than rule the world with his evil father. But when he falls, there's, like, no sound. There's, like, no score, to my recollection. Like,
I think that might have to do with some of the edits.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, he does yell in the original.
There were edits. I think there were edits later on where the scream was like piped in.
Yeah, I remember they did something funky with it.
Yeah, but then like the cut that I have like right here on my shelf, can't exactly see it in my frame, but I have like all the Star Wars films over here. But the version that I have, Luke does not scream.
Yep, and it's the stoic, silent fall.
It's just like,
it's awesome.
What's the point of him screaming? He knows he's going. So, like, he's just going to embrace death as it is. But,
it's
man,
awesome.
Oh, man. Yeah, I love Empire Strikes Back to death. I want to go watch it again.
I know. I'm like, I want to go watch all the Star Wars movies right now.
Me too. And yeah, I hope you all want to. I hope this little ranking. Thank you to everybody who requested us doing this. This was really fun. But I hope
very wise people.
I hope this inspired you guys to go and watch all the Star Wars movies again. My friend, thank you for joining me. Also,
thank you
super fun
for inviting me and thinking of me when you thought of Star Wars.
Totally, man. And stay tuned. I'm sure Stebbins will be popping up again at some point soon.
When all these new series come out, when all the new movies that got announced come out, you better believe it.
Oh man, and yes, absolutely. Stay tuned for a live feed of all of my thoughts, at least on a Disney Investor Day. Those stacked announcements, not just from Star Wars, but from Disney, Disney Plus, Pixar. Had some pretty big announcements. And of course you got the Marvel stuff. My podcast, Francisco, you all know I'm a big fan of Marvel already. So stay tuned for that live stream. It should be I want to say about 7 p.m. Pacific time. I forget what time I forget what time I told at least one of my guests. Stay tuned for that. If you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as hard as you possibly can. Hit that thumbs up also on your way out. I'd really appreciate that.
Hit the
Um,
like button, you must. The way of the Jedi it is. Yes.
Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Thank you again, y'all. With all that being said, back talk commence.